I love you, Cleveland, and I love you, Ohio, and a very pleasant welcome to this week's version of Bonus Time with Drennan on the Big Play Sports Network. Great to have you with us. Lots to cover on this week's show. Want to welcome in Ryan Smith, my producer. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Bruce. It's good to see you. Good to see you after a Browns win, that's for sure.
Boy, what a win it was, too. We're going to get to that in just a minute, but I have so much for you today that I want to dive right into it. So let me start first with the Cavaliers, who, of course, as of this recording this evening, they are going to be playing at Oklahoma City. And, of course, they are coming off a very nice win against Golden State, in which we saw Mitchell score 31 points and 7 assists. Garland with 24 and 7 assists. Good to have him back. Strus had 15 points in the game. Mobley, 13 points, 16 rebounds. Nice effort from him. And Jared Allen, good to have him back too, like Garland, who neither one of them were with us at the very beginning of the season, but Allen with 12 points and 9 rebounds. A big 115 to 104 victory over Curry and company. However, Okoro didn't play in this game, nor is he going to be playing. He's already been ruled out for this game against Oklahoma City with that knee injury, so he is temporarily out of action. Going into this affair against Oklahoma City, the Cavaliers, with a 3-4 record, and again, as I've said to you in the past, that now that the NBA season is underway, I really look at the Cavs as a team that can realistically fight for the 3rd or 4th seed in the East. I just can't bring myself to say that they can finish higher than that. Are you more optimistic than I am, Ryan? I can't see it.
No, I think it's pretty much locked. Well, and nothing's ever locked, but the Bucks and Celtics are clearly the best two teams in the East. They have are maybe the 4 of the top 10 players on the teams in Giannis, Dame, and then Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. But I like the Cavs to be able to get that 3 seed. In my opinion, they really have no reason not to get that 3 seed.
Well, this game against Oklahoma City tonight will be followed by a trip to Golden State for a rematch with Golden State following the victory here in Cleveland. So we'll be going out there, continuing the West Coast swing against Sacramento and then Portland before returning home on the 17th of this month, right before the Thanksgiving week against the Detroit Pistons. So that's that. Now, let me get to the Browns game, which was such a nice win, 27-0. We did what we had to do. We defeated a hapless Arizona team who is now 1-8 on the year. They looked like a 1-8 team too, let me tell you. They were just absolutely horrible. That's the first shutout by a Cleveland Browns team since 2007. How's that grab you?
It's been a while, Bruce.
Watson was rusty, yes, but 19 of 30, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. And I thought it was very important. I don't know if I mentioned this last week or not, Ryan, but I thought it was very important that he play in this game to shake off the rust because of these next 2 games with Baltimore and obviously Pittsburgh. So it was good that he was able to get in there, and he did well. I mean, he did well enough. He had rusty moments, yes, but did well enough, which is all we ask. The combination of Ford, Hunt, Watson himself, and Strong combined for 113 yards rushing. And this is what I said when Chubb went down. If the combination of who Stefanski's using can rush for 100 yards or get close to it, that's all we need. The more the better, of course, because we are a run-oriented team when Chubb is healthy. But the combination of those 4 guys rushed for 100 and 13 yards, so that's good. Amari Cooper, I thought, had a very good game. He had 5 receptions for 139 yards and a touchdown, and obviously there was a connection there, a good chemistry between Watson and Cooper. That was refreshing to see. And Njoku had 4 receptions, including a touchdown, 26 yards total. Arizona only got 58 yards passing with this kid, Tune. And 2 picks. And they only had 41 yards rushing. So that was very encouraging. The Cleveland defense recorded 7 sacks in this game. And again, as I have said over and over and over again, in my opinion, this is the best Cleveland defense in franchise history. So, with that being said, Ryan, I haven't totally shaken that cold, but I'm getting there anyway. I think I'm a little better. Is my voice better?
It sounds good, Bruce.
This is going to be such a difficult task for the Browns against Baltimore coming, because Baltimore seems to be clicking on all cylinders now. Combination, their running game. Jackson only has to pass when he has to, considering how tremendous their running game has been. They have a very good defense, so it's going to take a near-perfect performance by the Browns in order to pull this one off. Now, we obviously had our hands full with Seattle, should have won the game, but fell shy at the very end. Baltimore beat Seattle last week 37-3. I mean, no contest. They had 298 rushing yards in that game. Let me repeat if that didn't sink in. 298 rushing yards. Unbelievable. This Keaton Mitchell, along with Jackson himself. You know this Mitchell is an undrafted rookie?
Yeah, and I mean, if I believe right, I believe he had 9 carries and he had over 120 rushing yards.
First NFL carries out of East Carolina. 138 yards. That's amazing. And this is a good Seattle team. Before all is said and done, they may give San Francisco all they want for that divisional crown over in the NFC West. I mean, Baltimore right now, I know Kansas City's the defending champs and all, but right now Baltimore looks like the best team in the AFC, do they not?
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Bruce. And it is going to be really scary going into this Sunday when you consider that they lead the league in sacks. We already lost Conklin earlier, and now we're going to be without Jed Wills. And DeJuan Jones has held his own, but now we're going to see what's going to happen at that other tackle position. And it may take damn well a very near perfect game if we're going to come out of Baltimore with a victory.
Yeah. But it doesn't get any easier because the following week, obviously, we have Pittsburgh, and that's going to be how they keep winning is beyond my comprehension. I don't even want to tackle it to try to tackle that, pun intended. But yeah, Baltimore, wow. But then again, the NFL, going into the San Francisco game, it was a consensus opinion by every NFL fan just about that the Niners were the best overall team, top to bottom in the entire league, not just the NFC. And look what happened since then, and including last week. But I mean, they had a bye week, but including their last game where they got humbled by Cincinnati. Speaking of Cincinnati, they're back. Oh, brother, are they back? They beat Buffalo 24-18 to improve to 5-3, and they were up 21-7 at halftime. Burrow 2 touchdowns, 348 yards. He had a 108.9 rating in that game against Buffalo. Allen with a touchdown, 258 yards for Allen. But since he's really clicking, they really are. I also thought that Philadelphia was impressive in prevailing against Dallas, because Dallas was a determined team to knock them off, the NFC champs. But Philly prevails and improves to 8-1 with their 28-23 victory. Hurts with 2 touchdowns. Prescott 374 yards. And the Dallas kicker, Brandon Aubrey, scored a record 19 straight field goals in that game. That's a record. So, Philadelphia looking awfully strong. Dallas, we will see. It seems that somehow, some way, they find a way to underachieve before all is said and done. But a long way to go. And then in Germany, Kansas City, a winner over Miami. I don't know if you saw any of that, Ryan, but it was refreshing to hear the national anthem being played in Germany. And the referee in that crew, with a penalty, a false start penalty, actually got on microphone, as the referees do, to tell the crowd and the television audience what the penalty was, and he said it in German.
That is really cool.
I know. I got a kick out of it. Anyway, Mahomes with 2 touchdowns in that game. Miami's now 6-3, and they're still in a very good position the way Buffalo was going in the AFC East. However, put this in the back of your mind. Miami's last 3 games of this season are against Dallas, Baltimore, and Buffalo. And as we've said before, they seem to win games against teams of their record or less, or finesse teams. But they go up against physical teams, really good teams, and they fall way shy. So I think it remains to be seen how good this Miami team really is.
Yeah, they're still waiting on that marquee win. We obviously saw them fall to the Chiefs last week. Buffalo beat them pretty handily earlier in the season. So they're still waiting to get that win to really prove to put them in that category. However, things are going well for them because how the AFC East is shaking up. And it really is still their division to win. But these next 3 games, we'll see if they get that first victory against a team that they just can't go in and beat up on.
Right. All right, so this week we are a 6-point underdog against Cleveland. What do you think of that, Ryan?
I think it's fair. It's in Baltimore. They're arguably the hottest team in the league. And really, we're yet to see a Deshaun Watson game that we expect. Like, he played good last week, obviously, but his 2 performances as well this season were against a Titans pass defense, which is bottom tier in the league, and a hapless Cardinals team. So we're waiting for him to put it all together, and the defense is going to have to come do their thing if we want a chance. And realistically, I think this game's going to be won or lost in Deshaun Watson's hands.
I think that our defense against Jackson is going to be a huge key as well. I don't know if we can stop him, but if we can curtail that rushing attack by Baltimore, I think it gives us a chance anyway. But certainly, I think the line is justified that they're almost a touchdown and a extra point favorite over our Cleveland Browns. Pittsburgh's a 3-point favorite at home against Green Bay. Now, here's a game they should easily win. They'll probably lose.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Cincinnati's a 6.5-point favorite at home against Houston. How about Stroud? Unbelievable. Really unbelievable. And that'll be interesting because he'll be returning to the state of Ohio, downstate as it is, in the southwestern portion of our state to take on Cincinnati and Joe Burrow and company. But that'll be an interesting game to keep our eyes on. As will San Francisco at Jacksonville. I think that's a very interesting matchup between 2 teams from opposite conferences, especially because Frisco desperately needs a win after going 5-0 and then losing their last 3 games before the bye week. And Jacksonville appears to be real. They do with Lawrence and company. So this will be a test for them. I'm sure Frisco will right the ship. Whether they do it on the road against this Jacksonville team who's believing more and more. You know, isn't it amazing what a difference it's made with Jacksonville since they said bye-bye to Urban Meyer?
Oh, yeah. Doug Peterson, man, I can't speak highly enough, has done a tremendous job. From the day one where he stepped in, Trevor Lawrence, rookie season, I guess you could consider it awful. And his sophomore stride, he really put it together. And Jacksonville, we saw, got into the playoffs, and they came back. One of the most historic playoff comebacks we've seen. So Jacksonville right now has the longest winning streak in the NFL. So they're doing something right. That's all I can say.
That Cinderella Detroit team, I say that because they've been down for so long like we have, but they're 6-2. And they're a road favorite this week by 2.5 at LA against the Chargers, who obviously blew it a couple of weeks ago on not taking advantage of their matchup against Kansas City, the team they have to dethrone in their division. But they are 4-4. And they're certainly still a wild card possibility. I don't think they can knock off KC for the division. And then lastly, New Orleans at 5-4 at Minnesota, likewise 5-4. A couple of teams that are entertaining hopes of getting into the playoffs. Certainly, New Orleans is in such a weak division. I can see that happening. And Minnesota, obviously, still thinking that they can take. We'll see about Detroit. That's why Green Bay is nothing, and the Bears stink. So there you have that. All right, now, before we move on, couple of things about our division. With Cincinnati playing better ball, obviously with their wins over San Francisco and Buffalo, I mentioned they've got Houston this week, but then they travel to Baltimore. Something's got to give. So Baltimore, if they beat the Browns and then they beat Cincinnati, they're really in the driver's seat for this division. They can almost coast.
Yeah, I agree.
So this is two very, very, very intriguing weeks starting this weekend and the following weekend for that front-running Baltimore team. But Cincinnati has got Baltimore on the road after this week, and then they host Pittsburgh, and then they travel to Jacksonville. They've got a brutal schedule. They finished the season at Pittsburgh, at Kansas City, and home against our Cleveland Browns. So even though they got their act together, they're paying the penalty for being so good last year and the year before. Now, obviously, the Browns with these two games against Baltimore and Pittsburgh, then theoretically, at least on paper, and you can't go far with that because of any given Sunday in the NFL, but it eases up a bit until the very end when we play against the Jets and Cincinnati. Baltimore, as I mentioned, with these two games against us and Cincinnati, and then they have a tough stretch to finish out. They've on the road with Jacksonville. They travel to Pittsburgh, they host Miami, and they host Pittsburgh. So it's, if they're probably looking at it that if we win these next two games against Cleveland and Cincinnati, we know we've got that tough end of the season. If we can just split those games, we're going to be in good shape. And I would agree that that's a way you could optimistically look at it if you're a Ravens fan. No?
Yeah, I'd agree. And the way it's shaking out, I believe, so as of now, if the playoffs were to start today, I think we have Jacksonville. It would be Kansas City would get the bye, and it would be Baltimore versus the Bengals. But, man, what a hell of a matchup would that be if round one we draw the Ravens?
Right.
That'd be a great way to start the playoffs.
All right, and then Pittsburgh finally, and how they're doing it, I don't know. But after their game with us, they've got a road game at Cincinnati, and they've got a tough way to finish off, too. They're home to Cincy. They're at Seattle. That could be a very important game for the Seahawks because of being in the same division with the Niners. And then they're at Baltimore. So, there it is. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, I want to dive into the college football rankings. These are the second rankings for the college football playoffs. We'll do that when we return with Bonus Time with Drennan on the Big Play Sports Network. Great to have you with us for this week's version of Bonus Time with Drennan on the Big Play Sports Network, and need bet credits for the football season with the Big Play Network. Presented by Tipico Sportsbook. The Tipico Sportsbook app has your traditional bets like the money line, spread, and point totals. But also locked-in player props. Check out at the Big Play boosts every single week to back your favorite Cleveland teams and athletes. Best odds in the state of Ohio. Get in the action. Load up for the football season under the promo code BIGPLAY150. That's BIGPLAY150 to get a $150 bet credit on us, plus a $30 dog pound bet. So bet with the Big Play crew all season long with Tipico Sportsbook. All right, time to dive into the college football playoff rankings, and really not much change at all. This is the second version. The Buckeyes coming off the 35-16 victory over Rutgers, outscored Rutgers 28-7 in the second half. But Ryan, the first half was very competitive. Rutgers is not to be taken lightly. They're going to go to a bowl game, and they're not going to be a pushover.
Yeah, and good for Rutgers, obviously. Good for Greg Schiano. You know, they have one of the best pass defenses in the NCAA, and Bobby Carpenter and Anthony Schlegel, they have their Buckeye show every week, and they called it. You know, they're going to come out, they're going to do the trick plays. We saw the fumble Ruski, that was a good time. But the Buckeyes ultimately controlled the second half. That pick six was huge, totally changed the tide, and they ended up covering. So, I mean, what more can you ask from the number one team in the country?
And they weren't covering the entire game until the very end of the ball game, so it was interesting to see that they did cover the spread. But the Buckeyes remain number one of the college football playoff rankings. And I don't want to say don't pay attention any longer to the coaches poll or the AP, but don't pay attention to them any longer because they mean nothing. Nothing. I don't even think the committee looks at them. I really don't. All right, Georgia maintains their number 2 ranking in the college football playoffs with their 30-21 victory over Missouri. But Missouri's no fluke. They're the 12th rated team in the country, and they showed why. I mean, that was a 10-10 game at halftime, Ryan.
Yeah, it was a good game. Georgia ultimately prevailed as we expected, but credit to them.
Michigan maintains their number 3 status, big 41-13 victory over Purdue. McCarthy, 335 yards. Is he now the front runner for the Heisman?
I believe it's between him and Penix ultimately.
And who?
Michael Penix, Washington.
Oh, yeah, Penix, yeah. But he had a couple of games there after the Oregon win that make you wonder. But Michigan now has this cloud, apparently, the NCAA, but they're so powerless, the NCAA. I don't know if they're doing that to just show the country they're still the governing body. There's no punch behind them. They're punchless. So, and it can be appealed by Michigan. So I don't think it affects this team or Harbaugh for the remainder of this football season. Florida State remains number 4. Their 24-7 victory over Pitt. They outscored Pitt 14-0 in the second half, so the Seminoles in the driver's seat, and they really don't have much of a challenge the rest of the way in the ACC, even if you project them into the ACC championship. I just don't see it. They're in a really good position to make it to the playoff if they just keep winning. Washington... Number 5, they were there last week in the very first college football playoff rankings, 52-42 victory over Southern Cal. Wow. Caleb Williams has just got to be going insane. Washington outscored Southern Cal 10-0 in the fourth quarter. Adios, Trojans. That's it. 3 losses for them. Are you kidding me? Oregon remains number 6 as they improve to 8-1 with a 63-19 victory over a halfway decent California team. I actually think if Oregon plays Washington again, they'll beat them.
I agree with you. And you go back to that game, a lot of people blame Dan Lanning for not taking those field goals. Oregon ultimately had no reason to lose that game. So I agree with you. When they get the rematch, I think Oregon will prevail.
Texas remains number 7. They improved to 8-1 with their 33-30 victory over Kansas State. Kansas State is a top 25 ranked team, number 23. That was an overtime win for Texas. The Horns prevail. They don't seem to be missing a beat with Ewers hurt because this Murphy kid is doing so well, and Manning is standing in the wings in case he gets hurt. They're 3 deep at the quarterback position. The Horns for real. Alabama's number 8. They maintain that ranking with their 42-28 thrashing of Kelly and company. The Tigers now number 14 outscored LSU 21-7 in the second half, and I say adios to Kelly and the LSU Tigers as Alabama is in a very good position to win out because Auburn's their traditional game on Thanksgiving weekend, and Auburn's not that good this year. So they go into the SEC championship, presumably against Georgia, and they beat them, and there's Alabama in the Final Four again. That's simple. Okay, number 9, we have a change. Oklahoma, in the last Bedlam game against their arch rivals, the Oklahoma State Cowboys, 27-24. The fans flooded the field, the home game for Oklahoma State. Last Big 12 meeting for the Bedlam. Bye-bye to the Sooners as they go down again. And I say the same thing about them as I say about what I said. If Oregon and Washington were play again, I think Oregon would beat Washington. I say the same thing about Oklahoma and Texas. If Oklahoma were to play Texas again, I think Texas would beat them, even with their first-string quarterback Ewers being hurt as he is, because of the aforementioned depth that Texas has at that most important quarterback position. But Oklahoma, wow, what a devastating loss for them. And they may not even get into the Big 12 championship the way things are going. Oregon moves up from 11 to number 10. Or I should say that Ole Miss moves to number 9 from number 10 following their victory over Texas A&M. And then Penn State moves from number 11 to number 10 with their thrashing of a decent Maryland team. And, of course, the big one this weekend is Penn State and Michigan. Louisville, a win over Virginia Tech, no big thing there. Notre Dame goes down to number 20. They were number 15, but their 31-23 loss to Clemson and Dabo Swinney. And it seemed like Clemson was a very determined team to prove, they went into that game with a 4-4 record. So I watched that whole game, and they were very determined to prove that they're not terrible, or they've been sloughed off and, of course, discounted for any kind of a playoff position. But they're certainly not a bad football team, and they showed it against Florida State early in the year with that overtime loss to the Seminoles. They're going to be a tough team to beat in a bowl game, whoever their matchup is against. All right, this week, Alabama. 10.5 point favorite at home or on the road against Kentucky. Michigan, they were a 6.5 point favorite originally. That's down to 4.5 at Penn State. I find that curious, Ryan.
I do too. That's definitely going to be the game and I'm sure most people will be keeping their eye on, maybe besides the Georgia game. But yeah. I've heard it from players. Like, I listen to Bobby Carpenter, Anthony Schlegel, as I mentioned before, and man, Camp Randall's a hard place to play at, but you go into Penn State, man.
Yeah.
That is one hell of a place to play.
That's a noon kickoff, too. That's not going to be the nighttime prime day. It's a noon kickoff. Michigan State at Columbus against the Buckeyes, 31.5 point favorite. Whether they cover or not, they're easily going to win that game. Duke at North Carolina. Did I misread this, or did I see the line was originally Carolina 8.5, and now it's up to 13.5 or 14?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
I don't understand it, but of course you got Drake May, the Carolina quarterback, who at the beginning of the season was, along with Caleb Williams, the favorites for the Heisman. Southern Cal's at Oregon. Originally, Oregon a 12.5 point favorite. That's gone up to 14.5 and as high as 15.5 since. So you see where the money's going there. Miami at Florida State. At one time, this was such a tremendous rivalry. My goodness. Back and forth when Bobby Bowden was at Florida State and the numerous great coaches going back to the Jimmy Johnson days and Schellenberger with Miami. Ole Miss at Georgia. The Dogs are an 11-point favorite, but that's a good Ole Miss team now. But the game's at Georgia. So you would figure that the Dogs will win that one. And then Utah at Washington, originally 10.5, the Huskies, now 9.5. And Utah, even though they got slaughtered by Oregon, cannot be taken for granted, so keep your eye on that one. Significant other games before the end of the season in the Big Ten. Obviously, this Michigan-Penn State game is big, and Ohio State-Michigan, that's about it. I don't even count Big Ten championship. ACC, nothing left except the championship. Same thing in the Big 12. But in the SEC, Tennessee is at Missouri, and they're not in the playoff hunt. Georgia at Tennessee. That's at Tennessee. That's on November 18th. And that could be a trap game for Georgia. They got to be careful there. Alabama and Auburn, the rivalry, and then the championship. Obviously, I mentioned Utah, Washington, Southern Cal, Oregon, and the Pac-12. But then on the 18th, Washington at Oregon State, UCLA and Southern Cal, the rivalry, And then the 24th, Thanksgiving weekend, Oregon State and Oregon, the rivalry, Washington, Washington State, the rivalry. Before we move on, did you see that the Big Ten has announced their schedule for next year? And the reason why this is a big story is because Southern Cal, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon will be in the Big Ten next year. Listen to this. Ohio State on October 5th will host Iowa. Then on the 12th, they travel to Oregon. That'll be a big game. On November 2nd, they're at Penn State. That'll be a primetime game. It'll be a whiteout. And then the traditional game against Michigan. Michigan, check this out. September 7th, they host Texas. That's huge, huge. 21st, they host Southern Cal. October 5th, they travel to Washington. November 2nd, they host Oregon. And then at Columbus against Ohio State. That's a brutal schedule, Ryan. Brutal. Penn State. October 5th, they host UCLA. October 12th, they're at Southern Cal. October 26th, at Wisconsin. November 2nd, they host Ohio State. And November the 9th, they host Washington. That's big, too. Oregon. September 28th at UCLA. October 12th, they host Ohio State. November 2nd, they're at Michigan. They're not used to weather in November. You'll be curious. 16th of November, they're at Wisconsin. Same thing. And then they get Washington at home. Southern Cal. September 1st, they open up in Las Vegas against LSU. Then they're at Michigan, host Wisconsin, host Penn State, at Washington, and then they got Notre Dame. That's brutal. They've got the toughest. I think Michigan has the second toughest. Washington's got Michigan at home on October 5th, at Iowa on the 12th, November 2nd at home against Southern Cal, and then the 9th at Penn State, and that's weather. And then the 30th at Oregon. And then finally Wisconsin, assuming Fickle gets that program back to where they were. September 14th, they host Alabama. Hello. 28th at Southern Cal. October 26th, they host Penn State. November 2nd at Iowa, and the 16th against Oregon at home. There'll be no divisions anymore in the Big Ten. The two teams with the best records will play. When we get back, we'll wrap up the baseball season and start our hot stove league speculation and conversation on Bonus Time with Drennan on the Big Play Sports Network. Well, it's great to have you back. Bonus Time with Drennan, Big Play Sports Network. Our show this week has covered Cavs, NBA, certainly the NFL and the Browns, and now college football. The World Series is completed. What an impressive run by the Texas Rangers to win their first ever world championship. And when you think that they had to go through Tampa Bay, Baltimore, dethrone the defending champion Houston Astros, and then beat this feisty, scrappy Arizona team who had beaten both the LA Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves, it's an amazing accomplishment. And that last game, as we haven't spoken to you since that concluding Game 5, how about Gallen with a no-hitter? And still Texas prevailed and won the ball game 5-0. It's really unbelievable. But what a season by Texas, and particularly because they didn't have DeGrom. That impresses me so much. They paid all that money to DeGrom, and they still did this. Great pickup getting Jordan Montgomery, though, before the break. And, of course, Eovaldi gave him a tremendous first half. As I mentioned, it's the first World Series win for the Texas Rangers, who transitioned from Washington in 1961. Corey Seager earned his second World Series MVP. He won his other one with the LA Dodgers in 2020. He is the fourth player to win multiple MVP awards, along with, get the company that he's now with, Sandy Koufax, Bob Gibson, and Reggie Jackson. Incredible. Seager went 6 for 21 for a .286 batting average, 3 home runs, a double, 3 walks, 6 RBIs, 6 runs scored. Seager's 19 postseason home runs tie him with Albert Pujols, George Springer, and Alex Bregman for 6th most on the all-time list. The Rangers, as the 5th seed, are the lowest seed since seeding began to go on to win the World Series. And this is manager Bruce Bochy's 4th World Series title. He won 3 as manager of the San Francisco Giants in 2010, 12, and 14. And Bochy becomes one of 5 managers to win 4 or more, along with Joe McCarthy, who has 7, going way back with the New York Yankees when he had Ruth, Gehrig, and DiMaggio. Casey Stengel, who has 7. And the only manager to win 5 in a row, Stengel, and that was the first 5 years that he was the manager of the Yankees. He won the World Series his first 5 years. And by the way, his 1954 team won over 100 games that year, and they did not win the pennant, nor they obviously didn't get into the World Series because they were defeated in the American League by the team of the name of the Cleveland Indians. The 54 tribe won the American League by 8 games over the Yankees that year. With Mantle and Berra. Amazing. Connie Mack had 5 with the Philadelphia Athletics, and he managed 50 years in the majors. The Athletics, of course, moved to Kansas City in 1955. And Walter Ralston has 4. Of course, he did it with both the Brooklyn Dodgers and the LA Dodgers, with Koufax, Drysdale, and Joe Torre is the last one, who Bochy joins now with 4. Amazing. So there you have it. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Texas next year. They're really not losing any significant free agents, which I'm going to get into here in a minute. Well, the Guardians have named their new manager. It's Stephen Vogt, the journeyman catcher, as their new manager. And Vogt is only 39 years old, so it seems to be the trend in the major leagues to go with this youth movement. He is the 45th manager in Cleveland Indians Guardians history. In 2023, he was the bullpen coach in Seattle and extremely popular. He was destined to become a major league manager. Everybody that knows him say that he was eventually going to become a manager. It may have just happened sooner than what some people thought because he has no managerial experience. He had a 10-year big league career. 6 of those years were with Oakland. 2, he had 2 with Arizona, 1 with Tampa Bay, San Francisco, Atlanta, and Milwaukee. He was a 2-time All-Star, both in 2015 and 16, when he was a member of the Oakland A's. World Series champion as part of the Atlanta Braves team of 2021. In his career, he hit only .239. He had 82 home runs, 313 RBIs, 121 doubles, and 259 runs scored. In Oakland, in 2015, he hit .261, 18 homers, 71 RBIs. He had 21 doubles and 58 runs scored. And then the other year, in 2016, when he also made the All-Star team, .251 batting average, 14 homers, 56 RBIs, 30 doubles, and 54 runs scored. Stephen Vogt takes over as manager of our Cleveland Guardians. Of course, there was a big rumor that the Guardians also wanted Craig Counsell, the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers. But now Counsell leaves Milwaukee and goes to their arch rival, Chicago Cubs. Only an hour drive from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to the north side of Chi-Town. really amazing when you think about it. And I have researched that a lot of the players on the Milwaukee Brewers are shocked that Counsell would leave them, and I think it's a $40 million deal for Counsell. He would leave them to go to their arch rival Cubs. But when I saw that, I said, wait a minute. How can these players be shocked? They do this for money every single year, for God's sakes. They've got these high-priced agents who have clauses in their contract where this and that, let alone arbitration, free agency. These players do it all the time, so how the heck can they be shocked if the manager wants to make just a small fraction of some of the money that these players are making? Also, Carlos Mendoza was in the mix for managerial position for the Guardians. New York Yankees bench coach who is likely getting the New York Mets job as of the recording of our show today. He was the front runner. The front runner for the LA Angels was Buck Showalter. Houston, I don't know. With Baker leaving, I thought maybe Houston would go after Counsell, but Joe Estrada's the bench coach, and he may have an inside track. What Milwaukee's going to do, I don't know. What San Diego's going to do, I don't know. But I do know this. We need a bat. We need a bat. I'm going to run down a bunch of free agents. Ohtani. Where he's going to wind up, I don't know. It's going to be for a lot of money, and we're not in the mix. I'm going to give you a name of a Japanese phenom, Yoshinobuyo Yamamoto. He's a pitcher. He's 25 years old, and they say he's going to be phenomenal in the big leagues. Blake Snell is going to get big money from somebody, the lefty. Cody Bellinger probably will stay with the Cubs now that Counsell has taken that job. I don't know. That's my guess. Aaron Nola, part of that 1-2 punch with Wheeler of Philadelphia, he's a free agent. Josh Hader, the great relief pitcher of San Diego, curious where he winds up. Sonny Gray of our rival Minnesota Twins. He's 34 years old now. Jordan Montgomery, who I just mentioned, was a pickup by Texas. He's a free agent. Matt Chapman. Kershaw, whether he retires or not is not, we don't know yet. He might. Eduardo Rodriguez, he's going to get interest. There's going to be interest in him for sure. Because before he got hurt, he was on his way to Cy Young consideration. Rhys Hoskins. Now, I'm going to give you several names of guys, in my opinion, who are going to be free agents that it's a possibility we could be in, we might be able to afford them. Let's put it that way. Okay? J.D. Martinez, the right-handed power hitter. Last year, he signed a deal for only $10 million. Only $10 million, listen to me. But in terms of big league, the Guardians could afford that. Heck, we paid Encarnacion more than that. J.D. Martinez. The only problem is he's 36. And I think because he only signed for $10 million, a bigger market team with more revenue could offer him more than that. But he still swings a lethal bat. I'd love to see him as our full-time DH. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. That would be awesome. You couldn't have said it better yourself when you said we need a bat. But you mentioned Josh Hader. I don't know the price tag on that, but oh boy, would I love to see him because our bullpen.
Well, we've got Class A,
yeah.
So we don't need a closer. But boy, it'd be a heck of a 1-2 punch. Bring back memories of Andrew Miller when he was a setup guy.
Oh,
here. All right. Now here's the other ones I'm going to throw out at you. Hunter Renfroe of the LA Angels with Cincinnati too. 26 home runs the past 6 years. He's got a tremendous arm. Defense a little suspect outside of that, but Hunter Renfroe is a possibility for the Guardians. Adam Duvall, Randall Critchuk, I'm not excited about them. Jorge Soler. he signed a 3-year, $36 million deal with Miami, which is doable by the Guardians. He's only 31 years old. He's coming off a year in which he hit 36 home runs. But with Miami, could be an outfielder DH for us. The problem is, I think a bigger market team's going to go after him. And here's another one. Teoscar Hernandez, the outfielder of Seattle, 31 years old only, 26 homers, 93 RBIs, at least 25 home runs the last 5 years. So I wanted to throw those out at you as possibilities for the free agents that we could afford. Congratulations to Andreas Jimenez and Stephen Kwan for once again winning Golden Gloves for our Cleveland Guardians. Both of them very, very, very deserving. Jose was in the running at third base, but he didn't win it. And I don't know why Straw wasn't in consideration for center field. As bad as he is offensively, that has nothing to do with the Golden Glove. All right. The awards are going to come out with the American League MVP, Ohtani, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien. I don't know. Ohtani, 44 homers in only 135 games as a starting pitcher. The opposing team only had a 184 batting average against him, 167 strikeouts in 132 innings. Seager, 327 average, 33 homers, 42 doubles. Then Cy Young, Garrett Cole, I think, will win it. 2.63 ERA, 209 innings pitched, opposing batting average only 206. The whip, that's walks and hits per innings pitched, .98. That's off the charts tremendous. Gausman of Toronto, I don't see it. Sonny Gray won't win it. Rookie of the Year, Tanner Bybee of us. Great chance, 2.98 ERA. Tristan Casas of Boston, and Gunnar Henderson of Baltimore. Manager of the Year, Boshi coming out of retirement to do what he did with Texas. Kevin Cash of Tampa Bay with 99 wins. But I think you got to give it to Brandon Hyde of Baltimore myself, considering what they did. They lost over 100 games in 3 straight years. Now they win 101 games here in the American League. That's the most since 1979. 48 comeback wins for Baltimore. My choice would be Hyde. National League, Acuna's a shoo-in, no question about it. What a season he had. Led the league in just about every single category. Mookie Betts and Freeman also very good, but Acuna's a sure bet. Gallen for the Cy Young, along with Snell and Logan Webb. It's between Gallen and Snell. Rookie of the Year, Corbin Carroll's going to win it. 25 homers, 54 RBIs. And Manager of the Year, Council of Milwaukee, Schumacher of Miami, and Snitker of Atlanta. I think they'll probably give it to Schumacher, but you know what? I would give it to Snitker. 104 wins for Atlanta, 14-game divisional victory over Philly, 5 slugging percentage, which is a record for that team, 6th consecutive division title, 307 home runs. That ties an all-time mark, and he won the award in 28. I got to say him. He's my choice. All right, now I want to conclude this week's show with a tribute to one of the greatest of all time. Bobby Knight passed away this past week. 83 years old, born in Massillon, Ohio. Ohio State teammate of Jerry Lucas and John Havlicek. National championship team when they were all sophomores. 59-60 national championship team, Final Four team, 61-62. 3 years after graduating, he got the head job at the Army. And in 1966, that's when he connected with Mike Krzyzewski and became head coach at Indiana in 1971. I thought the greatest thing about his teams was the passing until he got just the percentage shot that he wanted. He was such a disciplinarian. They called him the general. But his passing of his kids were so well coached and disciplined to wait until they got just the percentage shot that he wanted. 3 national championships, including the 1976 undefeated team with Kent Benson, Scotty May, Quinn Buckner, and they're the last team to go undefeated in college b-ball. And he claims the year before, when they went 31-1, that was his best team. They lost in the Elite Eight to Kentucky. In 1981, he won the national championship with a guy by the name of Isaiah Thomas. And then he won it again in 87 with Steve Alford. 4-time National Coach of the Year, head coach of the 1984 Olympic gold medal champion United States team that featured a fellow by the name of Michael Jordan. He retired from coaching in 2008, and at that time, his 902 victories were the most all-time in college basketball. He now ranks 6th with his passing. And, of course, you remember the chair-throwing incident. Phil Bova, one of the greatest college basketball officials of all time, worked in the Big Ten for decades. Phil was officiating that game and had a love-hate relationship with Bobby Knight. Wrote a book about him. The General, Bobby Knight, passing away at 83. And last but not least, college basketball season's underway. So what's in store for us this year in college b-ball? I don't know, but it sure struck my attention that Michigan State at home lost their first game in overtime, 79-76, to that national championship contender, James Madison. They got a good football team this year, too. Absolutely. Ryan, thank you as always, my friend. Great stuff.
It's been a pleasure, Bruce. Great Wednesday, and I'm excited to air the show tonight.
Yeah, and we will look forward to joining you again next week with Bonus Time with Drennan on the Big Play Sports Network. Until then, as always, and most importantly, you remember, I love you, Ohio. And I love you, Cleveland.